Alright, so today we will be checking out the Darwin Cineape ELRS, and very directly this is going to be the best bang for buck Cinewhoop if you are in a tight budget. For the cost around 150-ish US dollars, you are getting a decent hovercraft that has the ability to carry a light action camera for decent footage or even professional footage. B, a very durable prop guard frame which is nearly indestructible. C, a craft that flies pretty good out of the box with good enough flight time at about 6 minutes to 7 minutes with an 850 milliamp LiPo. Overall, this is a very solid $150 drone and I don't have much complaint for it, but do know they do have to cut some corners of the cost to be down, which leads to the quality of parts. Let's start by looking at them one by one so you understand what I'm talking about. Let's get going. Alright, first let's begin with the frame. The ducts, I have no complaints at all as they are made by those very hard plastic that will survive mostly any impacts. As for the carbon fiber, not so much. By touching, you will know immediately the corners they have to cut in order to keep the cost down. The material generally is going to feel cheap. The edges are not trimmed and the screw holes are not counter-sunken. It just doesn't give you the smooth feel like other higher quality brands. But you get what you pay for, so no complaints. Next, let's look at the motors. The motors are the Darwin branded, I believe this is 1504 motors. Okay, let's switch it to this side so you can see it. These are the Darwin 1504 36,000 kV motors. They are fine and should last you for a while if you fly the Cinewhoop like a Cinewhoop. But if you are planning to do some aggressive flying, then the durability of these motors are unknown, as Darwin crafts are often known for good price but not the durability. Alright, next let's look at the camera. The camera, it's going to be a Cadex Ant analog camera, which I do personally believe that this is a very decent budget friendly and at the same time good performance analog camera. So this is a very good choice. And as for the VTX, it's going to be right here. This is going to be a Darwin branded 600 milliwatt VTX. The VTX makes me feel like this is something I don't think we can see it that well, but the VTX is something that I think it's kind of from the last generation. At least the design of it looks like from last generation, but generally it functions okay and it does generate good enough video quality. But if I have the money and the time, I will probably upgrade it to the Rush VTX in the future for better peace of mind, as I really like Rush VTX and they do perform very well, and I think that's the clearest analog VTX to me. Next, let's look at the antenna. One more place to reduce the cost, as the stock antenna that came with the Darwin is a linear antenna. This has no problem at all, just you might get better range and penetration if you upgrade to a RACP antenna later, which this will be extra cost, about 7 to 10 bucks for an antenna. For the electronics, unlike other manufacturers that usually uses an all-in-one board to construct a Cinewhoop, they decided to stick with the traditional FC plus ESC stack to build the Cinewhoop. The stack is a Darwin branded stack. I don't think you can see it. It's going to be right in here with the F411 flight controller and a 30 amp ESC, which should be sufficient enough for 4S, but nothing more. The benefit of using a stack is if one of the ESC fried or if you accidentally damage something, you just have to replace either the ESC or the flight controller. You don't have to replace the entire AIO. But the penalty of this is going to be you are going to have additional weight and additional size. Additional one thing to this stack is the Darwin actually did something very good, which is by extending the USB plug to the top. Right here, you just have to remove the little foam and it should be able to, you don't have to remove any screw of the frame. You can just plug in and set up everything in your beta flight. Last is the ELRS receiver, which is going to be right here. The ELRS receiver, I believe, was an old FrSky chip reflashed to ELRS, as I think Darwin might be trying to salvage older materials from their factory. It works okay for me. It's just very big compared to the newer ELRS receiver we often see on the market at the moment. Alright, so that's about it for specs. Now let's just go get this a quick flight so you can see how it performs. And by the way, if you don't mind, would you mind help me hit the subscribe button, as this really means a lot to me. Alright, let's go. Okay, let's start by flying indoors in my same old garage. The footage is coming out from the Cadec's end camera and recorded by my DJI goggles V2 with the TBS Fusion analog module. For a budget analog camera, I do think the footage looks pretty clear, and personally, I really like how the Cadec's end performs. To me, it really is a cost and effective camera for analog at a really low budget. So I think Darwin FPV did a pretty good job on selecting this camera. Anyway, I do also think Cinewhoop needs to have the ability to fly indoors, otherwise it kind of loses its purpose. And the 2.5-inch size and power level of the Darwin Cineape is just right for the job. With the lower camera angle, you can fly this really slow indoors. And even if you decided to go through gaps, you will know the Cineape is one of the smaller size of the Cinewhoops and normally can fit easier into tighter gaps. Also, since this is a pusher configurator quad, it is much easier to hover close to the surface, as the pusher format allows the rotor to generate more thrust at better efficiency, and better efficiency also leads to better flight time, and yeah, it's easier to hover. However, one of the downside of the pusher configuration is it will create more drag compared to pullers. But since the purpose of the Cineape to me is to fly really slow at close proximity, the drag will hardly be noticed, and I don't think it's that important. Alright, so we're done with the indoor flying. Let's just go get some outdoor flights. At outdoors, we're now switching the camera views to the DJI Action 2 at 4K 60 frames per second. So this is also to show you that this quad can carry a 60-gram camera without any problem. To me, if you will be attaching an external high-resolution camera onto your setup, it does not matter what system you use as your FPV view. It can be as cheap as an analog and as expensive as a DJI O3 system. But at the end of the day, only the best camera footage will be taken out and will be used to show people. And you can still get pretty good result like the video I'm showing. At outdoors, the Cineape still performs pretty good. I don't feel there are much shakiness or seeing jellos from my FPV view, so the tuning is actually not bad by default, and I don't think there is much you need to do out of the box to make it fly just fine. At a 2.5-inch category, the Cineape has a solid frame, and with the 4S power, I do think the Cineape handles wind quite okay. Of course, the bigger it is and the heavier it is, you're going to get better wind resistant, but the Cineape at the 2.5-inch, not so bad at the moment. I would say this is a moderate size for hybrid indoor and outdoor, as yeah, it's big enough to carry a camera and small enough to jump into most gaps, and it's not too small that you cannot carry camera, or too big that it's hard to fit in. So 2.5-inch, I think it's just the perfect size at the moment. So as for the sound level, to me it's kind of moderate loud, but it is as expected since most of the Cinewhoop are loud anyways. So don't operate this late night at your neighborhood, as you will be waking everybody up. Next, for the accurate ability of the Cineape, the regular flips and rolls will always be no problem, but if you are planning to do something beyond, getting a polar Cinewhoop should give you somewhat much better result. For a pusher drone like the Cineape, I still like to fly them slow and steady to get those closer to object cinematic shots. Also, I don't know if it's just me or what, but when I am operating a Cinewhoop versus a 5-inch freestyle drone, my stress level decreases very drastically, maybe just physically. A, I know there are ducks to prevent damage to objects or people. B, it's a lot slower and you will have time to think where you're actually going. Anyway, this is about the flight, and let's just head back and I will talk about my final thoughts about this. Alright, we're back to the bench. To sum up, at this price point, I do think the Cineape offers a decent cost and performance ratio, and there's really nothing that you can complain for the price point. Not to mention the parts itself will cost more than the entire build, so you're basically getting a very good bargain. And the question is always, should you get the Cineape? For me, I will say yes if you are a beginner that is coming from an analog Cinewhoop kit, which you already have the ELRS radio and a budget analog goggles. Then the Cineape is going to be a very good next step to learn from. But if you are a seasonal pilot and have been a hobby for a while, I would probably suggest getting something a little bit more premium, as you will be outgrowing the Cineape very, very fast. You probably will even have to grow it. You just have to buy it and you will start wanting to upgrade all the parts, and it's going to be costly. So probably the Cineape is not going to be good for advanced pilots. But always, if you have the money, just throw it at it. It's cheap enough that it doesn't hurt as much. Alright, so here goes the video. If you have additional thoughts to the Cineape you think I have missed, why not just help other folks by leaving a comment at below and just let us know what you think about the Cineape. Anyway, I will see you in the next video, and bye for now.